My name is Naomi Blake. I'm 32, a pediatric ER nurse in Spokane, Washington. I live alone in a cedar cottage outside the city, where the air smells of pine and frost. My weakness? I forgive too easily, especially when the hurt comes from family. You're not invited, my sister smirked on Christmas Eve. Hours later, mascara streaked and trembling, she pounded on my gate, whispering, "Naomi, please let me in." Before I tell you what happened next, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Has family ever blindsided you in a moment you thought was safe? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'll be reading them tonight with Coco. Christmas Eve always felt sacred in my family. Even when we fought, even when words cut sharper than knives, we still showed up. That was the unspoken rule. You showed up because family was family. After a 12-hour ER shift, I drove through snowy streets with peppermint brownies on the seat beside me, wrapped in foil like treasure. My mom had texted, "Drive safe. We can't wait to see you." Tessa, my sister, had added, "Don't forget your famous brownies." I believed them. Of course I did. I always believed in family. The house on Crestline Avenue glowed through frost-kissed windows. I saw Dad tending the fire, Mom at the stove, and Tessa, radiant in a red dress, fussing with the tree. I pushed open the door, cheeks flushed from the cold, balancing gifts and food. "Santa's here," I laughed. "Hope you're hungry." But Tessa stepped forward, blocking me with a smile sharpened into a blade. "Naomi," she said, "we need to talk before you get settled." I froze. "About what?" She leaned closer, perfume sweet, words sour. "You're not invited." At first I laughed. "Invited to what? Dinner? Christmas Eve?" Her smirk widened. "Tonight is immediate family only." I stared. "I am immediate family." From the kitchen came the scrape of a wooden spoon. My mother didn't turn around. "Tess," she murmured, but my sister cut her off. "We already agreed." The gifts sagged in my arms. "I worked all day. I came straight here. And you're telling me to leave?" "You always make things bigger than they are," she sighed. "It's not personal. You're intense. And Ben's parents prefer things simple. Intense." That word hit like ice water. I thought of the times I sat through double shifts when Dad was sick. The nights I carried EpiPens for her son because she forgot. The weeks I moved home to care for Mom after surgery. Intense? Maybe. But only because I showed up when no one else did. Dad appeared, rubbing his temples. "Girls, let's not—" But Tessa cut across him, smiling like a queen dismissing a servant. "Merry Christmas, Naomi. We'll catch up later." Something cracked inside me. I set the brie down hard on the bench, left the brownies stacked like offerings, and walked back into the snow. The streets glittered with lights, but I saw none of it. Every wreath mocked me, every carol cut. I drove home with tears streaking, hands tight on the wheel, her words echoing like a cruel carol. "You're not invited. You're not invited." When I reached my cottage, I locked the gate. The house smelled of pine and cocoa, my little tree glowing crooked but proud. I poured cocoa into my "you did your best" mug, forced down a brownie, and sat staring at the window while the snow thickened outside. I whispered to the empty room, practicing her smirk, "You're not invited." My laugh cracked like glass. By 9, the silence broke. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was pounding on my gate, not polite, desperate. I froze, heart racing. Through the snow, lit by the porch bulb, I saw her. Tessa, hair undone, makeup smeared, breath clouding in the cold. She clutched her phone, Mom's name buzzing unanswered. Her voice cracked as she pressed her hand to the gate. "Naomi," she whispered. "Please, let me in." I stood at the door, hand hovering over the chain. After everything she said, after pushing me out, did I open it? Or let her freeze? Christmas wasn't always like this. Growing up, it was my favorite night of the year. Mom strung popcorn garlands across the tree, Dad tuned the old record player to Bing Crosby, and Tessa and I wore matching pajamas that Mom sewed herself. No matter how tight money was, no matter how many arguments simmered beneath the surface, Christmas Eve felt Untouchable. I was the middle child of 3, though our brother Aaron moved states away after college. That left Tessa and me to orbit each other. She was the golden one, sunny hair, perfect grades, cheer captain. I was the quiet one, steady but invisible, slipping into nursing school while she collected trophies and applause. Mom used to say, "Naomi, you're the reliable one. You're the glue." Dad would nod, "Tess is the sparkle, you're the anchor." And I believed it was a compliment, until I realized anchors don't shine. Anchors weigh things down. Still, I loved my sister, fiercely, even when she borrowed my clothes and returned them stained, even when she rolled her eyes at my boring job, even when she laughed too loudly when I stumbled. I told myself it was sisterhood, sharp edges smoothed by shared blood. Our family traditions bound us together. Every Christmas Eve, we played board games by the fire. We opened one present before midnight. We baked gingerbread men and argued over which ones were too ugly to frost. It was messy, loud, imperfect, but it was ours, and I was always the one holding it together. When Dad's back gave out, I picked up extra shifts to cover the heating bill. When Mom had surgery, I moved in for 3 months, driving her to every appointment. When Tessa's son, Ethan, had asthma attacks, I was the one sitting in ER waiting rooms at 2 a.m., with his hand clutched in mine. So when Tessa smirked and told me I wasn't invited, on Christmas Eve, in front of our parents, it wasn't just rejection. It was erasure. The cracks had shown before. Looking back, I see them more clearly now, like the year I made handmade gifts because my nursing paycheck barely stretched. Tessa laughed and said, "Wow, Naomi, you really think in glue and glitter, don't you?" Or the Thanksgiving when she bragged about her new car, glancing pointedly at mine. "Don't worry, sis," she said sweetly. "One day you'll catch up." Mom always smoothed it over. "Tessa's joking," she'd say, handing me another slice of pie. Dad would clear his throat and change the subject. And I'd smile, because I hated conflict more than I hated being hurt. But this Christmas? She didn't joke. She cut. As a nurse, I've seen people at their rawest, broken bones, ruptured hearts, gasping lungs. I thought nothing could shock me anymore. But betrayal doesn't bleed where you can bandage it. It seeps, slow and invisible, until you wonder if you imagined the wound at all. That night, as I sat in my cottage with snow drifting against the window, I kept hearing her voice. "You're not invited." I wondered, what had shifted? Was it me? Or had my family silently decided that my role as the anchor meant I could be left at the bottom while everyone else sparkled at the surface? The answer came sooner than I expected. 2 days later, I went to the hospital for a double shift. During my lunch break, I opened my phone to a flood of social media posts. There they were. My parents, my sister, her fiancé, Ethan, all of them, smiling in front of the tree, stockings lined up perfectly, except mine. The caption read, "Family is everything. Blessed this Christmas Eve." My chest clenched. My name wasn't tagged. Not even mentioned. Like I didn't exist. But then I noticed something else. In the corner of the photo, near the mantel, there was a flash of color. A foil-wrapped tray. My brownies, they had kept them. They had eaten them, but not me. I stared at that photo, rage and grief twisting together. If they could erase me so easily online, what else were they willing to cut me out of? It's strange how silence can wound louder than words. After that Christmas Eve rejection, I tried to convince myself it was a misunderstanding. Maybe Tessa was stressed. Maybe she didn't mean it the way it sounded. Families fight, don't they? But the cracks widened fast. A week later, I stopped by Mom's to drop off groceries. Tessa's SUV was already in the driveway. Inside, the table was set for lunch, 4 plates. My parents, Tessa, her fiancé Grant. Not me. I froze in the doorway, paper bags sweating in my arms. Mom rushed over. "Naomi, sweetheart, we didn't think you'd be free today." "I texted you last night," I whispered. Tessa smirked from her seat. "Don't take it personally. We just didn't have enough salmon?" Grant chuckled, cutting into his fillet. "More for us, right?" I set the bags on the counter, my hands trembling. I brought bread and soup. Enough for everyone. Tessa's fork clinked against her plate. How thoughtful. Maybe next time text me first so we can coordinate, I whispered. I did. No one answered. The silence pressed heavier than the snow falling outside. It wasn't just meals. It was conversations. At Dad's birthday dinner, Tessa talked over me every chance she got. When I mentioned a patient I'd helped, she cut in. Speaking of health, Grant and I just signed up for a luxury gym. Trainers, spa, the works. You'd love it if you could afford it. Mom winced. Dad cleared his throat. I sipped my water, swallowing words that tasted like ashes. Later that night, Mom whispered as she hugged me goodbye. She doesn't mean it, Naomi. You know how your sister is. I nodded. But I wondered, why was it always my job to understand her? Why did no one ever ask her to understand me? The moment that stung most came with Ethan. Sweet 7-year-old Ethan, who used to cling to me like a second mom. I stopped by with a Lego set after a 12-hour shift. His face lit up. Aunt Naomi, come build with me. Before I could sit, Tessa swooped in. Not now, honey. Aunt Naomi's tired. Besides, we don't want her getting in the way of your new tutor. Ethan frowned. But I want... Her voice sharpened. I said not now. He looked down, shoulders curling. I sat frozen, the Lego box heavy in my lap. I whispered, It's just an hour. We could... Tessa cut me off. You don't know what he needs, Naomi. Let me handle my own child. Her words sliced. Like I wasn't family. Like I was just... intruding. I tried to pull back. To protect my heart. But every retreat only seemed to fuel her triumph. The final straw came one evening when I dropped by unexpectedly. I had baked a pie, Dad's favorite. Through the kitchen window, I saw them laughing around the table. My chair, the one I'd sat in for years, was gone. Literally gone. In its place stood a bar cart. Shiny gold stocked with liquor bottles. I knocked anyway. Mom opened the door, flustered. Oh, Naomi. We weren't expecting you. Behind her, Tessa leaned back in her chair, smirking. We redecorated. Hope you don't mind. The cart fits better than the old setup. Grant raised his glass. Cheers to upgrades. I clutched the pie dish to my chest, forcing a smile. Of course. Who needs old chairs anyway? Tessa's smirk deepened. Exactly. That night, as I walked back to my car, pie untouched in my hands, I realized something. They weren't just leaving me out. They were replacing me. Betrayal doesn't always arrive in whispers. Sometimes it crashes into you under bright lights, with an audience watching. For me, it happened at the engagement party. Mom insisted I come. Naomi, it's family. It would mean a lot to your father. I almost said no, but part of me still clung to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, Tessa hadn't erased me. So I ironed a dress, curled my hair, and drove across town with a gift tucked under my arm. The Caldwell Country Club glittered with fairy lights. Chandeliers dripped crystals. Guests clinked champagne flutes and laughed like their joy was infinite. I stood in the doorway, heart hammering. I spotted my parents near the bar, smiling stiffly. They waved. For a moment I felt seen. And then I saw her. Tessa. In a white cocktail dress with diamond earrings catching the light. She radiated confidence. Her arm hooked around Grant's like he was a trophy. Her eyes landed on me. And that smirk, God, that smirk, spread slow and deliberate. Naomi, she said loudly, drawing attention. You made it. How brave of you. A few heads turned. My cheeks flushed. I'm here for Mom and Dad. Of course you are, she said sweetly, voice dripping venom. Though you probably should have stayed home. This crowd might be a little upscale for scrubs and night shifts, laughter rippled. Not kind laughter. The kind that slices, I whispered. That was unnecessary. Grant raised his glass. She's just teasing. Don't take it so hard, but the teasing didn't stop. When it was time for toasts, Tessa seized the mic. She thanked their friends, Grant's colleagues, and their families. She raised her glass high. And of course, she added, eyes locking on me. To those who know when to step aside gracefully, so others can shine. Gasps, nervous chuckles. My parents stiffened. I felt the blood drain from my face. I wanted to sink into the carpet. But Tessa wasn't finished. She leaned closer to the mic, her smirk razor sharp. Not everyone is meant to sit at the head table. Some people belong in the audience. The room erupted with whispers. Someone even clapped. I stood frozen, my gift trembling in my hands. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. Dad looked like he wanted to storm the stage, but his fists stayed at his sides. And me? My chest heaved. My throat burned. I wanted to scream. To call her cruel. To demand why my own sister needed to grind me into dust just to feel taller. Instead, I turned and walked out. Gift abandoned. Pride in tatters. Outside, the winter air slapped my skin. My breath fogged white as I leaned against my car, fighting tears. Behind me, I heard the muffled cheer as they toasted. Toasted my humiliation. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. For the first time, the thought pierced through the haze of pain. Maybe I don't need to sit at their table at all. Maybe it's time to build my own. The drive home that night blurred. Streetlights smeared through tears until the road looked like a watercolor. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. I dropped my heels by the door, sank to the floor, and sobbed into my palms until my throat burned. The sound that came out of me was raw, animal almost. Not grief alone, humiliation. I replayed Tessa's voice over and over. To those who know when to step aside gracefully. Every word had been a dagger. And she hadn't whispered them in private. She'd announced them with champagne in her hand. With her new world applauding her cruelty. I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "Why does she need me small just to feel big?" No answer came. For days I disappeared. Work, sleep, repeat. I ducked texts from friends, ignored my mother's calls. The walls of my apartment closed in, piles of laundry, unopened mail, dishes in the sink. My world shrank to silence. One evening, Kelsey, my best friend since college, banged on my door. "Naomi," she shouted. "You can't hide forever. Open up!" I shuffled to the door, hair tangled, eyes swollen. She gasped when she saw me. "Oh, honey." I tried to smile. It broke. I collapsed into her arms, sobbing again. She stroked my back. "She humiliated you, I know. But Naomi, you're still here. You're still breathing. You're stronger than her cruelty." I shook my head. "I don't feel strong. I feel erased." Her voice hardened. "Then write yourself back in." The words landed like a stone in still water. Ripples spread. That night after she left, I sat in front of my mirror. My reflection startled me. Eyes hollow, skin pale. But behind the exhaustion, there was something else. A flicker because Kelsey was right. Tessa wanted me small, silent, erased. And maybe, for years, I had played along. But humiliation doesn't always end in defeat. Sometimes it hardens into something sharper. I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, whispering into the dark, "I won't stay broken." The next morning, I pulled my laptop onto my knees and opened a blank document. My hands still trembled, but my chest steadied. For the first time, I wasn't searching for escape. I was searching for strategy. The morning after my vow, "I won't stay broken," the world felt different. The ache was still there, of course, but beneath it something new pulsed. A kind of quiet clarity. I pulled my laptop closer and opened a blank document. The cursor blinked at me, daring me to begin. I typed a single word at the top. Revenge. Then I deleted it and replaced it with another. Plan. Because this couldn't be messy. It couldn't be emotional outbursts or late-night rants. Tessa thrived on making me look irrational. No, if I was going to strike back, it had to be clean, precise, impossible to dismiss. Step 1. Information. I started with what I knew. Tessa had married into money. Her husband's family ran Caldwell Interiors, a luxury design firm. I had watched her Instagram posts from their lavish trips and parties. but I remembered the small things too. Complaints about invoices. Odd silences when vendors followed up. She was sloppy in ways wealthy people often are, assuming money would cover the cracks. I spent hours digging through public records, searching for her husband's company name. Contracts, filings, tax liens. Most were straightforward, but a few raised questions. Payments were shuffled between consultants that didn't exist. Overdue bills hidden under LLC shells. I screenshotted everything, labeling each file with dates. Step 2. Allies. That evening, I called Eric, a friend of mine who worked in event planning. He picked up on the second ring. "Naomi? Finally! Where have you been?" I hesitated, then whispered, "You saw what Tessa did." His voice softened. "Yeah, I was there. I wanted to drag her off that stage." I exhaled. "I need your help." But not to fight her directly, to gather things. He was quiet, then said, "Tell me what you need." And so I did. Vendor names, whispers from staff, unpaid balances. Eric knew them all. By the end of the night, he had promised to send me a list of every person Tessa had wronged in her climb. Step 3. Patience. I pinned sticky notes to my wall. Names, events, dates. I drew arrows between them. Tessa's smile looked unbreakable from the outside, but here, on my wall, I saw the fractures. And fractures could be widened. One night, as I stared at the web of notes, my phone buzzed. It was Kelsey. "You're awake at 2 a.m. again, aren't you?" She teased. I smiled faintly. "I'm working." "On what?" "On not letting her win." Kelsey's voice sharpened. "Good, just promise me something." "What?" "That's when you hit her back. You don't just bruise her pride. You make sure she can't rise on someone else's bones again." I whispered. "That's the plan." Days blurred into nights. My apartment transformed from a cocoon of grief into a war room. Evidence folders, screenshots, whispered phone calls, and then breakthrough. Eric emailed me an invoice from a florist Tessa had stiffed after her wedding. Thousands of dollars, unpaid for months, despite Tessa flaunting exclusive blooms online. The florist's handwritten note scrawled across the bottom, "Final demand." No exceptions. I held the paper in my hands and felt my pulse quicken. This wasn't gossip. This was proof. Proof that Tessa's perfect facade was built on broken promises. I whispered to myself, "One crack. That's all it takes." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Because I knew what came next wasn't just about revenge. It was about exposure. And exposure, once lit, spreads like wildfire. The next morning, as I poured my coffee, I noticed an envelope slipped under my door. No return address. Inside, a single photograph of Tessa at a gala, laughing with someone who wasn't her husband. On the back, one word: soon. The photo haunted me. Tessa's perfect smile, her hand resting lightly on the arm of a man who wasn't her husband. A glass of champagne mid-toast. Whoever slipped it under my door wanted me to see what lay behind the curtain. I traced the word scrawled on the back. Soon. At first I panicked. Was someone stalking her or me? But then the panic shifted into something sharper. Someone else wanted Tessa exposed. Maybe I wasn't fighting alone. Still, I didn't act recklessly. Instead, I tucked the photo into my evidence folder. It wasn't time yet. First, I needed to test the waters. My first strike came quietly. I scanned the invoice Eric had sent me, the florist's demand for payment. Then I drafted an anonymous email to a local bridal forum. Warning: be cautious of working with Caldwell weddings. Some vendors haven't been paid for months. Attached is an invoice. Protect yourselves, no name. No explanation. Just proof. I hit send and closed my laptop. My heart hammered like I'd detonated a bomb. By morning, the post had spread. Vendors shared warnings, brides reposted, whispers spreading like cracks in glass. Later that afternoon, I overheard Tessa in the lobby, her voice sharp. "What do you mean you can't find replacements?" She barked into her phone. "I don't care if they're threatening to walk. I want that ballroom perfect." I hid my smile behind my coffee cup. Small, but effective. Eric helped with the second strike. On a popular finance forum, he posted an anonymous thread. Rumors about Caldwell Interiors. Shady consultant payments. Might be worth digging before investing. We didn't attach evidence yet. Just bait. Within hours, the post gained traction. Speculation grew. Whispers turned to questions. The next day, I saw Tessa's husband storm out of their building, phone pressed to his ear, his face pale. He barked into the receiver, "Get ahead of it before it spreads further." "I don't care what it costs." I exhaled slowly. The cracks were widening. My third strike came by accident. I was in the building's cafe, laptop open, when I spotted Tessa across the room. She was with the event coordinator for the upcoming charity gala. Her voice carried, sharp and impatient. "I don't understand why people are dropping out last minute," she snapped. "I've never had issues before." The coordinator shifted nervously. "Some are concerned about the recent posts." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "Posts? What posts?" The coordinator hesitated, then muttered. "Vendor forums. Finance boards. It's not a good look." Tessa's face drained of color. For the first time, I saw fear flicker beneath her polished mask, and it lit something in me, because for weeks I'd been the one crumbling. The one shrinking in corners. But now the tables were tilting. That night I wrote in my journal. Today I saw her falter. Just for a second. But it was real. She's not untouchable, and I slept with a smile. 2 days later, another envelope slid under my door. Inside was a screenshot. Tessa, again at a gala. Only this time, the man at her side wasn't just anyone. It was Daniel Vega, a rival developer with a reputation as dangerous as it was glittering. At the bottom of the page, another note. "Do you see the pattern yet?" My hands shook. Because yes, I did. Tessa wasn't just cruel. She was reckless. Reckless enough to play with men who could crush her if they wished. Reckless enough to leave trails for someone else to hand me. I whispered, "One more push." The florist cracks. The whispers spread. Tessa's mask slips. And now in my pocket, I hold proof of a secret affair. Evidence powerful enough to shatter her entire facade. The question is, do I reveal it now? Or wait for the perfect stage? The envelope with Daniel Vega's photo sat on my desk for 3 days. Every time I passed it, my stomach tightened, because this was more than petty unpaid invoices. More than vendor whispers. This was a scandal with teeth. If exposed, it wouldn't just bruise Tessa's pride. It would dismantle her golden world piece by piece. I knew the stage. The annual Caldwell Christmas Gala. It was Tessa's masterpiece every year. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, Miami's elite gathered under one roof. This time, though, she wasn't just a guest. She was a hostess. That meant lights, cameras, attention, the perfect place to burn her mask. I spent nights assembling a dossier, screenshots of invoices, whispers from vendors, the photo of Tessa and Daniel, the shady payments Eric uncovered. Delia, my attorney friend, helped me structure it. Clean, factual, airtight. "If she calls this gossip," Delia said, tapping the folder, "she'll look like a fool." "This is evidence." Kelsey asked the question I was too scared to voice. "Naomi, are you sure you want to do this in public? Once it's out, it's out." "There's no going back." I stared at the folder, then whispered, "She wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone." "It's only fair that the truth finds the same audience." The ballroom glowed with gold. Waiters glided with trays of champagne. Strings of lights twinkled above glittering gowns and tuxedos. And there, at the center of it all, stood Tessa. My sister. My betrayer. She looked radiant. I'll give her that. Diamonds at her ears, crimson silk hugging her frame. Her laughter rang loud as she greeted donors, her husband glowing at her side like an ornament. I slipped in quietly, in a black gown, simple but sharp. No glitter. No diamonds. Just presence. Enough to be seen, not enough to be dismissed. Halfway through the night, Tessa raised her glass. "Friends," she announced, voice honeyed. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate generosity, legacy, and family. Especially family. Her eyes flicked toward me just for a second. The smirk, and that was my cue. I moved toward the stage, heels clicking against marble. Conversations faltered as people turned, whispers spreading like static. Tessa's smile froze. "Naomi," she hissed under her breath. "What are you doing?" I took the microphone. My voice trembled at first, but I steadied it. "I'm here to tell the truth. Because family doesn't mean betrayal, and generosity doesn't mean unpaid bills." Gasps. The projector flickered to life behind me. Delia had made sure of it. The first slide, the florist's unpaid invoice. Her signature scrawled in black ink. Then another. Screenshots of consultant payments, shell accounts, transfers hidden under Caldwell Interiors. Then the photo. Tessa with Daniel Vega, champagne glass mid-toast, his hand resting too comfortably on her back. The whispers turned into a roar. Her husband's face went pale. I spoke over the noise. My sister told me I wasn't invited to Christmas, that I didn't belong. But the truth is, she's the one who doesn't belong. Not in our family, not in this city's trust. She lied, she cheated. She humiliated me, and she thought no one would ever dare to speak against her. Tonight I'm speaking. Tessa lunged forward, voice shrieking. Lies, forged. She's jealous, pathetic. But no one looked convinced. Too many eyes were on the screen, on the documents, on her husband's expression of betrayal. He stepped back from her, shaking his head. "Tessa, tell me this isn't real." She clawed at his arm, frantic. "Don't you see what she's doing? She's trying to destroy us." But the donors were already murmuring, shaking their heads, pulling away. Phones snapped photos. The Caldwell name, once polished, was now dripping with scandal. I stepped down from the stage, handing the microphone back to the stunned host. My hands shook, but my shoulders were square. For the first time, I didn't feel like the quiet sister in the corner. I felt tall. As I walked past her, I whispered, "You told me I wasn't invited. But tonight, you're the one being uninvited." Her face crumpled. The night of the gala replayed in my mind like a fever dream. The gasps. The slides flicker across the screen. Tessa's shriek echoed as her perfect mask cracked in front of Miami's elite, but it wasn't until the next morning, scrolling through headlines, that the reality hit me. Caldwell heiress, humiliated at gala. Secret evidence exposed. Vendors unpaid. Affair rumors swirl. Christmas gala turns into public scandal. Each headline carried her name. Not mine, and that's exactly how I wanted it. Tessa's husband moved out within 48 hours. Someone in the building whispered that he'd been seen dragging 2 suitcases out before sunrise, face grim, no chauffeur in sight. By the weekend, papers were filed. Divorce.Caldwell Interiors released a statement. Cold and clipped. The company has no involvement in the personal matters of Mrs. Caldwell. We remain committed to integrity and transparency. Translation? They were cutting her loose. Vendors who had waited months for payment flooded social media, posting invoices, screenshots, and stories of being ghosted. What I had started quietly had now become a storm, and Tessa was the lightning rod. Mom called me 2 days later. Her voice shook. "Naomi, is it true? Everything you showed?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, all of it." A long pause. Then she whispered, "I wish I could say I was surprised. But she's always needed to win, even if it meant crushing you." Tears welled in my eyes. "She told me I wasn't invited, Mom, like I was nothing." Her voice cracked. "And you showed her you are everything. I'm proud of you." Those words hit harder than anything else. For so long I'd felt like the forgotten sister. But not anymore. For weeks I couldn't step into a cafe without overhearing someone talk about the gala. She really thought no one would notice. Imagine humiliating your own sister like that. I heard her husband suing her for fraud. Every whisper, every shake of the head chipped away at the image Tessa had built. She wasn't the glamorous hostess anymore. She was a warning story, and me? I wasn't the humiliated sister in the corner. I was the one who spoke. One evening, I returned to my apartment to find another envelope under my door. My stomach twisted as I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper, blank except for one line, "Truth demands more." I sat on my couch, staring at it, heart pounding. Was it from the same anonymous ally who'd sent the photos? Or from someone else altogether? Part of me wanted to burn it, to pretend the war was finished. But another part, colder, sharper, recognized the truth. Revenge doesn't end cleanly. Still, I was done chasing shadows. For the first time in months, I felt steady. The last time I saw her was at the grocery store. She looked small. No makeup, hair pulled into a messy bun, hoodie swallowing her frame. She froze when she saw me, eyes wild for a second. Then her lips curled into a bitter smile. "Hope you're proud," she spat. I met her gaze, calm. Not proud, free. She flinched, like the word itself was a blade. Then she turned and stormed out, leaving her half-full cart behind. That night, I stood on my balcony with a glass of wine, the Miami skyline glittering around me. For the first time, I whispered, "It's almost over." But deep down, I knew the final chapter still waited. Christmas morning dawned soft and quiet. For years, the holiday had meant chaos. Wrapping paper flying, Tessa's laughter dominating the room, me shrinking into corners. This year was different. I brewed coffee, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and sat by the window as sunlight poured across the city. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was peaceful. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, from colleagues who had watched the gala scandal unfold. "You were brave. You spoke truth. You changed everything." I didn't answer right away. I just let the words wash over me, because bravery hadn't been what I felt that night on stage. I'd been terrified. My voice had shaken. My hands had trembled. But I had still spoken, and that was enough. For so long, I believed Tessa's voice was louder than mine, sharper than mine, stronger than mine. But revenge taught me something unexpected. Strength isn't about who shouts the loudest. It's about who refuses to stay silent. She told me I wasn't invited. She smirked as if I were disposable. But when the truth came out, she was the one uninvited, from her marriage, from her company, from the pedestal she built out of lies. And me? I reclaimed what mattered most. My dignity, my voice, my future. Betrayal shatters you. It leaves you doubting your worth, replaying every moment until you wonder if you deserved it. But the truth is, betrayal says nothing about you. It says everything about them. I survived not because I was fearless, but because I was determined. And in that determination, I found freedom. I didn't forgive Tessa. Maybe one day I will. Or maybe I won't. Forgiveness isn't always the goal. Sometimes clarity is enough. That night, I lit a candle on my balcony. The air was cool, the city alive with holiday lights. I raised my glass and whispered, "To being uninvited and walking away stronger." And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Tell me, would you forgive betrayal like this? Or would you walk away forever? Share in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts.